there is a true convergence of these universes. There's a technology and creativity are inherently intertwined. The art of it is actually not about the precision, it's about the feeling. Relevance is driven by culture, and culture is an empathetic and emotional place. So you have to kind of play within those frequencies, I believe. Originality and real ideas and imagination, I think, are assets that are growing in value, in my opinion. Consumer lens, or the user's lens, if you want to call it that, I think is the one perspective that I think everybody should constantly grab hold of anytime there's any conflict in your mind. Skills are cute, but imagination is the new currency.
Welcome back to the second season of Rules Don't Apply, in partnership with our friends at South by Southwest Sydney. Once again, we're bringing raw, unfiltered conversations with the thinkers and troublemakers, rewriting what success looks like. Because the future doesn't belong to those who play it safe. It belongs to those who play it differently. Ladies and gentlemen, all right, wonderful people of South by Southwest, if you are in the gallery, come on over to our live vodcast stage. We are recording another episode of Rules Don't Apply in partnership with South by Southwest Sydney. And I have the pleasure of being joined by Manon Dave. Now, Manon, truly a polymath. He is a technologist, a musician, a creative strategist whose career truly defines categorization, and trust me, I have tried. Whatever hat he is wearing, though, he sits at the intersection of culture, code, and curiosity, designing the next generation of media experiences that blend art, emotion, and innovation. From composing for will.i.am and Snoop, all the way through to leading innovations teams at major broadcasters, including the BBC, Manon's creative fingerprints can be found everywhere across music, media, and everything in between. Manon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the over-convoluted intro.
Mate, we love a bit of intellectual flourish.
Yeah.
Mate, I want to start with really where, your area of specialization, which is where art meets algorithm. What can artists learn from technologists and vice versa?
Oh man, it's been an interesting observation. First of all, thank you for having me on the pod. And it's been kind of interesting because my whole career, all I really wanted to do was make cool shit and have the opportunity to create stuff. I wish I was a visual artist. I wished I was a musician, and I always kind of pursue that stuff without really having any grasp of the core skill set and not having the patience or the talent, I guess, or perseverance to really pursue the thing for 10,000 hours and whatever. I just wasn't I was very real with myself about when I wasn't good at it, but it didn't take away from the itch that I wanted to scratch, which was to make stuff. And I think I started to try and find that, I think, in my career, in some of the early jobs I had, software engineering and QA and product development, product design. And I started to actually, in a very kind of urgent way, desperately try and find the creativity within those roles. Yeah. And which are otherwise seen as kind of, used to be seen certainly as non-creative roles. Yeah. And I think that kept me going and allowed me to sort of tell myself stories of I am a creative. But I think what I saw converge over time, because I was still making music in the background, was the further I kind of climbed the ladder or whatever, networked and extended my career in both of those worlds. Certainly one more successful than the other at a certain point, which was my technology career. I started to realize that there was, of course, there's been a convergence of creativity and technology throughout time. Yep. But the more that those things moved towards each other, the more people wanted to be involved in the other side at every level. So people like me who were working in tech companies, or I was working in ad tech at the time and designing a bunch of marketing tools and so on, and ads and campaigns, and then building the tech around them. I used to just want to make, why are we going outside for the music? I can make the music for this ad. Why are we paying for sync? Yeah. I can do that. And wanting to just be involved. And then vice versa. People who were musicians and doing well in music were also aware of the clock on their careers, and were trying to diversify investments and wanted to know the tech guy who kind of wants to make music. And there's this kind of cultural exchange, if you want, that went down. And I think now more so than ever, there is a true convergence of these universes. There's a technology and creativity are inherently intertwined. And I think, when you say like art meets the algorithm, there's obviously people who look at that with sort of a certain perspective and are fearful of it and have this negativity towards that concept. To me, it's enablement, and it's kind of like the leveling of the playing field, so that we can collaborate, and that's kind of an exciting thing for me.
When you're walking that tightrope at the intersection of art and algorithm, how do you balance creative instinct with technological precision, and being able to foster the best outcome with those two really different starting points?
Honestly, and I think in general, your loved ones and your friends and family are like the best people to kind of like stress test and do consumer research with.
Yeah, the personal
because they'll just
board.
tell you what they think.
Yeah.
My sister would always tell me like 30 seconds into any of the tracks that would play her excitedly in the car, like, yeah, it's cool, but it's kind of boring after like 20 seconds, and then same thing with the products that you'd build, right? It's just, there is something about consumer culture that we, as serious creatives and product people and technologists, completely underappreciate, because frankly we're just looking down the barrel of our own perspective. And I think there is something to be said for, like, it's not audience research, and there are practices that you can pursue, but fundamentally zoom out and just like, as the consumer, how do I really feel about this, is a very powerful way of looking at something.
How many shits do they give about this?
Zero.
Yeah.
Probably they're in shit's overdraft. Yeah. They don't care.
And when does innovation cross that line into indulgence? Because you're so right, and it's not just in creative pursuits. You could say that there's marketing myopia, executive myopia, strategy myopia. Like, how do you find that line? How do you know when you're like, oh, okay, now I'm chasing the rabbit down the warren? And you're right. They're not going to give 2/5 about this.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who makes music definitely knows about like this. We have like anybody who kind of like is into vinyls would do crate digging, right?
Yeah.
In the same way, people who make music, especially electronically or in certain genres like dance, hip hop, we do sample digging, and so like you'll spend hours, and people who make music know this. You'll spend hours listening to just snares or like a kick drum just over and over and over again, and it is so indulgent. It matters though. It matters not because you think it sounds good, but it matters because of like the science and the art. So there's the science is like there's frequencies, and we can nerd out on that, but the art of it is actually not about the precision, it's about the feeling. And I think that like that's the part that when you kind of move away from how does it make people feel, I feel like that's when you're going down the rabbit hole, because now you're thinking about other types of outcomes. Yeah. Your own, inward perspective, or commercial gains, or whatever. Other drivers, which are important, but nothing as important as the relevance. You know what I mean? The relevance is driven by culture, and culture is empathetic and emotional place. So you have to kind of play within those frequencies, I believe. What
does that look like in practice, right? What I'm hearing you say is at some point you kind of zoom in, you're in the weeds, you're listening to the 1300th snare drum, and then you've got to zoom out to the stratosphere to try to see the forest from the trees.
Yeah.
Are there habits or tactics or, rubrics that you use to be able to balance that sort of that jump or that leap between the trenches and the stratosphere?
I think over time, I can't say that there's like use this methodology.
This 3-point plan.
Yeah. I don't have. I was just saying to you off air, I'm not here to sell a book. I probably should be, because it'll be highly lucrative, I'm sure. But no, I'm not here to sell a book. So there's no core methodology. What I would say is, we had Mo Gaudat on stage, I think here at South by a couple of days ago. It's interesting. He talked about one of the things that they've been working on within the industry. Is a completely agentic software development team. And he said, right now people are vibe coding with like 1 GPT. Now we're moving into an era where they've been sort of emulating peer programming or like peer review. Yep. So they've got these 4 agents reviewing each other's code, improving on it. And what is this? This is actually the fabrication or emulation of perspective, right? So it's literally us building alternate perspectives and brains within this artificial intelligence ecosystem. And he also started that keynote with saying in 2004 we modeled everything that we're currently doing on the human brain and the way the human brain works. So fundamentally, that's the way in which we've programmed this thing. So if that's true for a second, that means that what is innately human and what is innately powered as a methodology in our brain is to be empathetic, not in the DEI sense of empathy, but in the very practical method of empathy, which is to zoom out, have almost like an out-of-body experience, and then look back at what you're up to through a third perspective. If that's true, that is probably today, I would say, especially in these industries, the most underutilized skill set as humans that we are applying. We don't do that. We do retrospectives at the end of a product sprint, for example, to put it in a very practical sense. And we go around the room and everybody gives their perspective on how pissed off they were about when I told you we should have done it like this, and then we did that. Why is that not a mechanism we use whilst we're actually in the process of working? And I think that is a way that I sort of think about zooming out in the process rather than zooming out between stages of the process. I think that's important. Yeah.
What's the next horizon? You've said perspective and outsourcing perspective to agentic systems. What follows that?
So my first ever gig in music was I scored a TV show.
Okay.
And I couldn't play an instrument, and I was like drawing MIDI, drawing music notes into my Fujitsu Siemens laptop with like the little furry nipple mouse. You know what I mean? Like in the middle of the keyboard. And it just was so weird for people in the music industry to kind of like operate that way. And I think then it became a thing where it was easy for me to like transcribe that and give it to the orchestra to play. And I used to think to myself, what does the conductor do? Just wave their arms. I was like very ignorant to that process. There's something to be said about the composer to conductor, or composer to arranger to conductor, like pathway. These are very unique skills that are required if you ask anybody who's deep on classical music or orchestral music. You could be all of them, but there are really specialisms in them. And I think we're in that phase of going from like the composer to possibly the arranger to maybe the orchestrator when it comes to a suite of agentic systems that we can sort of direct, through whether verbally or some other means that might develop. But I think it's about your particular cocktail and combination. Just like we have our cocktail of tool sets, no matter which industry or profession you're in right now, or as a creative, you have certain tools, you might use certain software, I use different software. That whole orchestra is still conducted by you.
Gotcha.
And I think that's where we're headed. We're headed to more of a, I talked about it on stage, but more of a curation approach to creativity.
And what's the mindset that underpins this? I know that you and I were talking before we went on screen around the building blocks, to thrive as a creative producer in this ecology. What's the mindset that's going to set creatives up for success in a world where I can get a team of agentic, brilliant agentic, systems talking to one another and curating themselves?
So, I was sharing this with a friend of mine yesterday, but do you know what like the most commonly used phraseology or phrase or word is in LLMs today, as in prompts that have been given to LLMs?
Thank you.
Imagine, if only. It was crazy when I read this. I was like, makes sense. And it also makes sense why people are so fearful in the industries that I occupy. The most commonly used phrase and or word is in the style of and like. So it's like we are literally using these things to mimic human ingenuity as demonstrated previously by some other person, a human being or a style from, and so originality and real ideas and imagination, I think, are assets that are growing in value, in my opinion. I genuinely believe that. And I think, our role, I guess, or the core function, methodology, I think is around harnessing true ideation, I think revisiting imagination, which many of us have kind of like not left behind, but certainly diminished in our most active thinking about what we're supposed to do in our jobs.
Yeah.
That part is sort of like the thing you can do in your spare time when you're having fun.
How do you see imagination evolving in a world that is so AI driven?
Well, I think, again, I think the value of original ideas shoots through the roof. And I think actually with infinite, what feels today, and it's not quite infinite, but what feels like infinite power at our fingertips, and it was going to, as Mo said, it's going to grow exponentially. Oh, it's the Netflix problem.
All right, talk to me. What's the
Netflix problem, as articulated by me right now, because it just popped into my head, is...
Copyright, Manon Dave.
No. It's well, everybody's talked about it before. It's like, how long do you spend picking what TV show you're going to watch on Netflix? I know for a fact my typical timeline is within a 20-minute window of my wife falling asleep. So it's like, I know for a fact that after... I've got 45 minutes, which is typical length of one episode, to pick something, because she's not going to pick, I'm not going to pick, and we're going to scroll through, and then it's like a spoiled for choice. Same thing, I think, is with infinite possibilities, the main bottleneck is your own imagination. You're not, like, people need to approach a blank canvas. Same thing exists, by the way, in, I've built a lot of applications, and I've worked on a lot of projects around education, music education within the arts, and there's this same thing, blank canvas syndrome, or writer's block. That writer's block part feels like it's reserved for a creative process. I don't think that's by mistake. It's because those are areas that we just simply don't. We exercise our more mechanical parts of our brain a lot more than we do the creative ones in general. And so I think that is the thing that we're going to have to tackle, is the Netflix problem.
What does that look like for you day to day? Someone that has clearly been a success in building creative muscle. How do you create space to noodle on ideas, and what does that look like in practice day to day?
It's very like unromantic in both literal and figurative. It's monging out in front of the TV and or other means of content, listening to music, watching stuff completely unrelated to what I'm thinking about, video games, or frankly, and this is a position of luxury, but I definitely invite everybody to do more of it. Is I tried to erase the word hobby from my lexicon, and these are things that I have to do, because if I don't do them, I'll cease to exist in my preferred form, which is I can't stop making music even if I'm not successful at it, or can't stop noodling around and making stuff, because that's kind of the only thing that I truly enjoy. And if I call that a hobby, then I'm kind of myself. So it's a part of what I do. So now, again, the position of luxury is, because I treat as mentally as much as I can each of those things in equal measure, having the ability to hop from one serious project, if you want to call it that, to another serious project, but certainly have writer's block over here and then be able to explore this other thing over here, which has an equal iterative process, definitely helps me. So it's literally abstracting the problem by going and solving a different one, even if that problem is beating somebody on FIFA.
Let's talk about failing fast and learning quick. How do you know when to kill an idea?
That's a good question. I think I have two answers to this. One is, I think, the personal project one, and the personal project one is, I think, a bit more self-fulfilling. So the killing it part is if it's not fulfilling its purpose, which is hopefully to bring you some kind of joy or exercise something you want to exercise. But the professional one, which I think is probably more interesting for a lot of people, is that whole thing of like, you're a consumer first, and it's, again, super unsexy, but the truth is just like, you're building this thing, but would you use it? Or would the person that you know in your life, not the persona that was researched by the agency for 6 weeks that represents a cohort of people, but like your auntie who buys Christian Dior handbags, does she give a about this campaign? Or does she care about that thing? And I think so, just the consumer lens, or the user's lens, if you want to call it that, I think is the one perspective that I think everybody should constantly grab hold of anytime there's any conflict in your mind.
What's your favorite idea that has never seen the light of day for some external reason or another that you just you had an itch that you wanted to scratch, but you just weren't able to scratch it?
Oh man, so there's actually two, and I have to admit that both of them, I think, we're reaching a time where we might be able to do it, right?
Okay.
And it's not because it was like technologically impossible, because we actually built both things.
Yep.
But the timing was wrong. The first one, these are like complete passion projects, so I'm going to nerd out for a second.
They're the best ones.
The first one was in 2018, and you can look this up. It's if you check out the IF Design Awards, they're like very coveted international design awards that cover everything from physical to architecture to software concepts. Mm-hmm. So I designed something called System, and System was a concept project for a world where we might have AI generative music, but to have a physical instrument for AI generative music. So an instrument, an interface that allows you to co-create with AI, but as if you're playing the AI, basically. And so it's out there on the IF Design Award website, and also the London Design Museum. We were co-winners that year of the Concept Design Awards with Virgin Galactic. So that was cool. And it just didn't go from
good company.
Yeah, it was great, but it didn't go from concept to production because people were like, oh, it's so far away, this AI thing. Of course, that was the same year the Transformer paper came out.
Talk about a second bite of the cherry.
So maybe, you never know. And the second one is something that's really, really, I know, at the heart of conversation here in Australia right now, because I saw some footage in folks in government discussing IP rights and attribution, and maybe for some people a boring one, but one of the things that is weird being in the music industry is like, it's still a little bit handshaky, Jerry Maguire kind of vibes, right? Where basically it doesn't matter how much you've contributed to a piece of work.
It's all about the bottlenecks.
It's about kind of who you are as well, right? So I did a song, I'm not going to actually name the artist, but I did a song with like a really prominent artist, and I was so excited for this thing to come out. And it was like just me, him, and like two other people in the studio. So I was like, I did like 25% of this song by this artist. And then date got set. We got asked to negotiate the splits or the percentages of the song, and then manager was just like, "Yeah, so what are you thinking?" And I didn't have any, anybody to represent me, so I was like, "Well, I did 25. There's four of us. Just go. I'll go evens."
Dutch.
Yeah, I know I wrote the entire second verse and produced the track, but I'll go evens. And he was like, "Yeah, no. We've got about 7.5% earmarked for the three of you guys, and then so you're going to split that." And then whatever. Now, the reason I mentioned that is because in the world of Gen AI, and it's not just about music, anything that's created, and a big topic is, what about the stuff that it trained on? What does attribution look like? How do people earn money for the works that inspired other works? Yeah. So I built something several years ago, and I did take it to a bunch of people in the music industry, and I think the industry just wasn't ready for it, and I ended up selling that to the film industry, the VFX world, where they wanted to protect leakage. So if where things leak,
for sure.
Marvel movies, they know exactly who last touched it and leaked it, and those people are no longer seen.
So it's kind of like a blockchain that gives you breadcrumbs around the
it's actually built on the same methodology, the same type of infrastructure as blockchain.
I reckon both of them are going to come around the mulberry bush again.
Yeah, it's called Block Crumb.
There you go.
So anyway.
Wow.
Shameless self-promo anyway, but whatever.
I think, and it's funny, right? Like, because you've just given two examples that, often it's not necessarily that it's not a great idea, it's just ahead of its time or it's not the right time. For creators and innovators that are looking to get into your space, I think, you 20 years ago, 15 years ago, what advice would you give them in terms of setting themselves up for success if they're wanting to follow the same path as you?
I mean, yeah, it's a roller coaster, so maybe the same path, probably not. But what I will say is, we're in an era now where I think it's less frowned upon, significantly less frowned upon, to pursue these seemingly unrelated parallel interests with equal aggression at the same time.
Yep.
And in fact, I think I would say it's heralded now in some ways, right? But I think when I was coming up, software engineer, you have this, that's your serious job, that's what's going to pay the rent. You can make music in your spare time and whatever, and like whatever, that was the energy. But I was really, really lucky, and you can only connect the dots backwards, right? And I
Hindsight
didn't,
2020.
I didn't do this as a methodology, but I realized now that it helped no end. I was so passionate about wanting to just do that stuff, and I just wanted to do it for no other means or outcome. But I wanted to do it enough to pre-warn everybody that I was going to do it. So I'd be in work talking about, oh man, I was in the studio till 3 a.m. yesterday and whatever, and not really, but saying it almost as a defense mechanism so nobody can tell me that they didn't know I was doing this, and I've already declared it.
Yep.
But why that helped me was, A, it helped people understand my interests and value potentially that I could have added elsewhere, and the permission to play and be creative and do those things and speak to those creative folks in that part of the business. But secondly, what I was really lucky with, and this is why you should always do this because you never know what other people are into, is my bosses. I had several bosses along the way, managers or even owners of the company. The owner of that first company that I worked in, where I was just like, oh man, all I want to do is make music and I'm stuck in this advertising role. The owner of the company who invented this advertising tech, he just wanted to be in a like 70s rock band. And so he spent all of his millions of dollars that he gained through this business building like a super elaborate studio for himself in his house that he didn't know how to use. And so then he'd invite me around on the weekend, and then we'd like build that rapport, and then he'd introduce me to people who went on to win Grammys and all kinds of stuff. And so it's chance encounters, but those chance encounters only happen, I think, if you kind of shamelessly declare what you're about and pursue it. And when you get it wrong and you actually know, it wasn't for me, I stopped that. So I think transparency and allowing yourself to be seen as what I would say you are, I think is an important thing that people try to design. I think don't try and even design it, just say it how it is. You know?
I love that. That's such good advice. Other side of the coin, like what are the watch outs? What's the cautionary tale? You know, the tripwires that someone might look at you and your story and misinterpret.
Yeah, for sure it's, well, you were lucky and you met all these people and whatever. Generalist without the outcome or without the output is the misconception big time.
What do you mean by that?
You and I were just talking about it before we got on here. I was joking like, I'm not here to sell a book or whatever. And also this whole public speaking thing is relatively new to me in the last few years.
You're doing well. Quick back.
Thank you. But the fear factor for me is like, let's say the realization for me, this is some people's career, which I respect. But for me, I'm here talking about some of the stuff I worked on before and, you know, and the things that have allowed me to be in this seat. What happens if I don't do any new shit for 5 years? Are you still going to have me in the seat? So I think the fact is that the relentless pursuit of the output, of actually like producing the thing and then pushing it out into the world and making sure that whatever your multi-threaded generalist pursuits are result in something that you can look at, touch, feel, talk about.
Has attributable value.
Exactly. I think that's important because then you've actually fulfilled, let's say, at least one cycle to be able to offer perspective on how to do it again, even if it's in a completely different lane.
I think that's such sage wisdom, especially in a world where you can outsource the thinking. These algorithms are going to do the consulting, you know, the heavy consulting lift, the ideation.
Yeah.
Even in strategy, it's shifting towards like, what's the thing? You're going to have to move towards delivering a thing that has attributable value.
Yeah.
You know, if you cast your eye to the next 10 years of the intersection of creativity and technology, you know, what excites you most? And what are the rules that we're going to have to break to get to that stage?
What excites me the most is definitely new formats. I think that we typically do this, we try to shoehorn, you know, new technological advancements into existing economic infrastructures, industrial infrastructures, and ultimately formats.
Yeah, current state forward. Yeah.
And then I get really excited about the new formats, the new ways of looking at things. And recently with the BBC, who've sort of brought me in to kind of like, I guess, inspire change in that way within their R&D and kind of R&D meets content kind of framework. I think the thing for me is that I referenced recently Bandersnatch. As you can tell, I watch a lot of Netflix, but Bandersnatch, if anybody didn't see it, it's almost like, if you guys remember the Goosebumps books, where you choose your own path, right? And it was a really great piece of content. I thought it was really innovative. I think it shot subscribers through the roof for that period of time, but then it disappeared. So I sent one of the team on the path to like finding out whatever happened to that, Why did it disappear? Not the show itself, but the format.
Yeah.
Why didn't it become the next big thing? What was the deal with that?
Yeah.
And the truth is, it was a fantastic execution of something that I think is a future format, but production costs and just the time and money and effort and investment it took to do that all the time, or as a genre, was just too much. And so I think we need to keep making those Bandersnatch moments happen so that we can accelerate the format for the consumption of or the creation of like the next
and all of the input technologies that kind of get you there, like the production line.
And I'll tell you what was in the news that I think everybody will have read who keeps track of this stuff, that I think is a great indicator of this. Not because I think necessarily that they're going to solve the problem, but many people might have seen that Johnny Ive, the guy who's credited as designing the iPhone, recently joined OpenAI and through an acquisition to create like the new device. So that's the current talk of the town, right? Like, what's going to be the physical device, physical interface for AI? And that's a challenge that arguably the company that has designed or built the tool that everyone's saying is going to replace the designers and the creatives has just had to spend billions of dollars
on bringing in the designers
on a company that has basically had no notable output to bring in the specific people that might be able to design the interface. So I think that there is a massive currency around format design and human-computer interface or consumption of content or whatever that thing may be. But I think entirely new industries will be built out of that.
And what are the rules that we're going to have to break? You know, the rubrics that are holding us back right now, the conventional wisdoms, the myths that we just have to unshackle ourselves from.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's myths, but I think honestly, the biggest thing is industry. We've built industries around these things that have commercial and economic gains, and they've become antiquated. And it's not for like. Yeah, you know, of course, I'm all about fair attribution, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But it's not even to shoot down the people who are making money right now. It's just that they just do not serve the purpose for... Like, there is no way today to say that this prompt response was attributed to inspired by these 1,500 creatives. That's where we cherry-picked all of these components. There's no way to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one challenge. And then the thing that introduces is, well, how do you now pay all those people?
Yeah.
You know, because you can't do this stuff without paying people. So I think that kind of industrial infrastructure is actually the serious thing that's going to hold us back.
Yeah, and it's a wicked problem. It's like playing 4D chess.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say, actually, the kind of historic context for this is copyright law, don't quote me on this exactly, but I think it was like a few decades after print press, at least, maybe longer.
Yep.
And...
Hasn't been updated since then.
No, what I'm trying to say is the latency between the technology and the legal infrastructure to govern the technology was like decades, if not a century.
Yeah.
So that was a century-long reaction to a piece of technology. That's gonna slow us down.
Yeah, I mean I think that's one of the more wicked problems with AI is that the rate at which it's innovating itself. How on earth do you have legislation and protections keep pace with that? You know, it's practically impossible.
Yeah, well, people who make stuff also make infrastructure. So it's like just get the creatives involved.
All right, mate. I could talk to you about this for hours, but I'm going to be very respectful of your time and our audience's time. I'm going to close with 5 very quick fire questions, and I'm going to add one. I'm going to add one on at the end because I want your advice on something.
Okay.
All right, Manon, what is one hot take that you believe about what's next that no one agrees with?
I wouldn't say no one agrees with it, but I do think that I get slapped down a lot for saying that skills are cute, but imagination is the new currency. Imagination's everything.
Brilliant. All right. What's the most important thing you've let go of?
I mean, I should have let go of a lot of other things, including pot noodles and burgers. But I think probably the most important thing to me?
Yeah.
The most important thing to me that I have let go of, I think, is when I'm working on it, is my own space. Like being able to I think, find time for myself that isn't constantly thinking about these things. I'm going to get that back, though.
What do you want written on your gravestone?
Manon Dave made cool shit.
Made cool shit.
Yeah.
What's one rule you secretly wish you hadn't broken?
Yeah, I think probably going over. I'll explain this. Going over my boss's head. This was actually, and this is a learned lesson, because I actually think that I'm a great believer in, like, people should have respect.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of the time, what I found is, in my urgency, I've decided to go over people's heads to try and just get things done. And I think what is a better legacy is showing that you have empathy and respect for the people that you collaborate with, even if you disagree with them.
I love that answer. I think that is profound advice. What question are you most tired of being asked?
How do you see the industry 10 years from now?
Yeah. And the bonus one, which is a personal add-on. I'll give you 1, 2, or 3 Netflix recommendations, most underrated shows that everyone has to watch.
Oh, okay, but I'll go outside of Netflix a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Pieces of content.
Yeah. There is a show, it's no longer on TV, so you can find it, I think, in the UK and maybe Australia. It's on Amazon Prime or HBO or something. It's called The Newsroom.
Okay.
The Newsroom has the one bloke off of Dumb and Dumber.
Alf?
Well, I'm going to say Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
That isn't Jim Carrey. I forget his name, but he's amazing. He's one of my favorite actors. But Newsroom was such a great show. And
Okay.
Yeah,
Newsroom?
that's one. Newsroom, I will say Rome, also on HBO.
Ooh, okay.
Rome is a throwback as well. It's great. And then the third one I'm going to go with is, okay, this is a shameless plug.
Go for it.
It's Heroes, my first ever piece of work on TV.
And where can we find it?
Heroes was on NBC. In the UK, it's on BBC, and in Australia, you guys have NBC.
Or not directly.
Peacock or whatever.
Yeah.
It's on Peacock.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, keep doing the work that you do. Push the boundaries. I can't wait to see what you do.
Thanks so much, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, Manon Dave.
Hey guys. Cheers. Thank you.